Discover how one incredible waitress exposed a billionaire's rudeness, transforming lives forever. The diner was more than just a place to eat, it was a canvas of blissful chaos, painted with the laughter and chatter of regulars. Sarah, with her heart of gold and hands worn from countless shifts, moved with a grace that belied her exhaustion. At 35, she wore the mantle of a single mother with pride and grit, all while serving hot coffee and warm smiles to the community she adored. Her daughter, Emily, just 16, burned with ambition and dreams of a life far sweeter than the one they were currently living. One Thursday afternoon, golden sunlight streamed through the diner's windows, casting an enchanting glow over each booth filled with friends catching up and families enjoying their meals. But a dark cloud loomed as a high-profile billionaire, Jack, strode in, a king in his own kingdom. He was oblivious to the warmth that surrounded him, demanding his meal with an arrogance that made Sarah's stomach twist. But she held tight to her grandmother's wisdom, integrity, respect, kindness. As lunch rushed on, the buzzing atmosphere was abruptly shattered. Jack, idling at the counter, snapped at Sarah for a trivial error, calling her incompetent in front of dismayed customers. Gasps filled the air as those who knew her leaned back, their eyes wide in disbelief, brimming with disbelief that the very heart of their community was under attack, but something ignited within Sarah. Fueled by the love for her daughter, the pride in her work, and the collective support of her family-like patrons, she stood tall. "It's not me you have a problem with," she said, voice strong despite the tightness in her chest. "You're a symbol of a greater issue of economic inequality that sacrifices the dignity of hardworking people like us." The words rang out, carrying the weight of the diner's past, echoing against the walls imbued with dreams and struggles. For a moment, silence blanketed the room. Jack's expression cracked, revealing a hint of vulnerability behind his polished facade. Before he could respond, the diner erupted. Clients shared their own battles, woven with hopes and resilience. Each story laid bare the power of community, while Sarah's bravery radiated like a beacon. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The atmosphere crackled with emotion, stories of hope layered over drudges of despair, as patrons voiced their truths: a father struggling to keep food on the table, a single mother like Sarah facing eviction, each tale a testament to the human spirit. Jack, tattered pride bared before the community, teetered on a precipice of change, but what was brewing in his heart? Would he take a moment to reflect and recognize the disparity haunting lives he had never known? The scene lingered in the room, an electric silence filling the gaps, as the diner held its collective breath. As laughter and shared dreams converged in defiance of ignorance, all eyes turned to Jack, waiting for the response that could change everything, desperately yearning for resolution just beyond his proud facade. The diner hummed with a nervous energy, every gaze locked onto Jack. His handsome face, typically so composed, was a whirlwind of emotions. He scanned the room, taking in the faces of people who had shared laughter, meals, and tears in the same space where he had just flaunted his wealth. The tension hung thick, almost tangible, as if they were all waiting for a glimmer of humanity to shine through the billionaire's armor. Jack hesitated, and the quiet was deafening. Sarah stood firm, heart racing, feeling the warmth of her patrons' hopes wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. They were all rooting for him to see, to understand. It was more than just a simple confrontation. This was about recognition, a chance to transcend the wealth gap that divided them. His breath shuddered as he took in the raw vulnerability surrounding him. He began, but the words faltered, caught in a web of discomfort. The usual bravado was slipping, exposing a truth he had chosen to overlook for far too long. "I didn't mean I'm sorry." The apology was barely a whisper, but it ignited a spark. Murmurs rippled through the diner as people exchanged looks of disbelief. A billionaire, apologizing? The walls that once separated them seemed to waver, and hope bubbled up, momentarily overshadowing the cynicism. Charlie, the father who had shared his struggles moments ago, leaned forward. We all make mistakes, Jack. It's how we learn from them that counts. His voice was steady, grounded, offering a lifeline to a man who seemed, for the first time, less like a titan and more like a fellow human being. Jack nodded slowly, absorbing the words, but doubt flickered behind his eyes. Link by link, the invisible chains of privilege that had bound him began to loosen. There was something almost fragile about him now, a man caught between worlds, desperately yearning to belong yet paralyzed by his past actions. As the diner's energy shifted, Sarah felt courage swell within her. You can choose to be part of the solution, Jack. We all can. The words spilled out, charged with desire for change. The room echoed her sentiment. Help us change things. The billionaire's face softened, and in that moment, surrounded by warmth rather than judgment, he appeared to ponder not just their words but the weight of his own privilege. Would he rise to the occasion? Would he embrace the challenge before him? Suddenly, Emily, Sarah's daughter, stepped forward, her eyes alight with fierce determination. Maybe we can help each other, she said boldly. You want to help people, don't you? Use your resources to make a difference. We could show you how. Jack's gaze darted around the room, to the faces of the hopeful patrons, and for the first time, he seemed to see them as individuals rather than a faceless crowd. The air vibrated with possibility as they all leaned in, craving connection rather than division. Would he seize this chance to redefine himself? Jack's heart raced, caught in a tide of uncertainty and hope. Can he truly become an ally in this fight against the inequalities standing starkly in their midst? The moment crackled with energy, leaving everyone on edge, waiting for the decision that could transform not just one life, but a community entire. And as the weight of that choice hung in the air, the sound of a clattering plate shattered the silence. A nervous patron, an innocent mistake, or perhaps a sign that life was about to get a lot messier. The plate crashed to the floor, a sharp sound breaking the charged atmosphere. Jack jolted back to reality, the brief moment of vulnerability shattered. Nervous laughter danced around the room, quickly followed by whispers of concern. All eyes darted to the source of the sound, but the true weight still lay on Jack's shoulders. He felt his pulse quicken, uncertainty swirling inside him. Would he retreat back to the safety of his privilege or step forward into a reality that could change everything? The moment hung heavy, each breath filled with potential. Are you okay? Sarah managed to ask, her voice slicing through the tension. The diner's attention shifted back to him, a shared breath of hope lingering in the air. Jack glanced down, seeing the shards of the shattered plate glistening like reminders of what was at stake not just in this diner, but in his own life. Yeah, just surprised, he replied, but his heart was racing for a different reason. The part of him that longed for acceptance was battling the fear of judgment. What if they didn't believe him? What if he stumbled again? Courage pushed the uncertainty back, and Jack met Sarah's gaze, firm and kind. I really do want to help. The words came spilling out, raw and unfiltered. The buzz of chatter restarted, the nervous energy replaced by a growing anticipation. Emily leaned closer, excitement flickering in her eyes. Then let us brainstorm. She gestured for people to gather around their table. We could start a community project. Something big. It was as if a spark ignited within everyone. Faces lit up, filled with ideas, hope cascading like popcorn across the room. Charlie jumped in, his passion palpable. What about food programs? Providing meals to families and kids? We've got people here willing to pitch in. Yes. Someone shouted from the back, igniting a steady rhythm of encouragement. Ideas began to pour forth: shelters, training programs, even job fairs. Jack stood at the center of this storm, heart racing as he absorbed the energy swirling around him. In that moment, he witnessed something profound. These weren't just ideas, they were lifelines, bridges to a better tomorrow built on mutual support and understanding. The diner was no longer just a place for food, it was transforming into a beacon of hope. Jack shifted, standing a little taller as he realized he could be a catalyst for this change. He could utilize his wealth, not to shield himself but to lift others up. He opened his mouth, ready to speak, but suddenly felt the weight of doubt creep in again. What if he failed? What if he wasn't enough? Then he saw them, people sharing their stories, faces alive with passion, a community united. He saw the younger patrons, wide-eyed and hopeful, chiming in with their ideas, feeling empowered. They believed in him. That thought, simple yet profound, churned in his chest. "Okay, let us do it," he finally said, a new determination lacing his words. "I'll support this. We can make a real difference." Cheers erupted, flooding the diner with electricity. Sarah beamed at him, tears welling in her eyes at the sight of Jack finally stepping out from behind his walls. The burden of indecision was lifting, and hope filled the air more densely than the aroma of coffee and fried food, but just as the collective excitement surged, a shadow loomed over the diner. The entrance door swung open with a creak, revealing a familiar figure from Jack's past. His heart sank as recognition hit him hard. It was someone he had hoped never to see again, a reminder of the life he was trying to leave behind. Jack's breath caught in his throat. What would this person want? Would they drag him back into a world of privilege and pressure just when he was finally starting to embrace something real? The diner froze, tension shifting again, this time into something darker, something uncertain. Everything rested on the next moment, the next decision. Would Jack let this shadow snuff out the light he had just discovered, or would he fight for the chance to truly change not just his life, but the lives of so many others? Jack's heart raced as he locked eyes with the figure standing at the doorway. A chill ran through him as he took in the sleek jacket and polished shoes, the sharp contrast to the worn denim and cozy booths around him. It was Alex, an old friend from the affluent circles Jack used to navigate, someone who carried the weight of expectations forged in the fires of privilege. And now, here he was, ready to remind Jack of everything he was running from. The chatter in the diner dwindled to a murmur, hovering between excitement and apprehension. Those who had just cheered for change were now looking at Jack, gauging his reaction. Would he face Alex or turn away? Jack could practically feel the struggle pulsing through the room, each person holding their breath for what would happen next. "What do you want, Alex?" Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper but charged with a newfound strength. Alex sauntered closer, a smirk creeping across his face. "I thought I might find you here. You really think you can help these people? You're just playing a part to feel good about yourself." The word stung, ricocheting around the diner as eyes widened with shock. Jack felt the heat rise to his cheeks, a mix of anger and shame boiling within him. Around him, he sensed the tension, thick like syrup, as the community braced for an exchange that could either solidify his journey or knock him off course altogether. "I'm not playing a part, Alex," Jack replied, louder this time. "These people matter. They deserve more than just my money. They deserve my time, my effort, real change." A ripple of approval spread through those gathered around the table. They could see Jack's resolve, his heart laid bare before them. Alex's smirk faltered for a moment. "Is that what you think? That money and some community projects will fix everything? You're naive, Jack. You'll be back, just like the rest of us." "Not this time," Jack shot back, his voice steady. "I'm tired of living in shadows, hiding behind distance. They need me to actually show up." As the tension crackled, Sarah stepped forward, her presence strong. "And who are you to decide what we need?" she demanded, eyes locked on Alex. "Jack is right. We're tired of being ignored. We're tired of people like you turning your back on us." The diner buzzed with murmurs of agreement. It felt like a moment of awakening, not just for Jack but for everyone present. Together, they were a force. And in that moment, standing against Alex's disbelief, they found a flicker of empowerment. Alex tried to maintain control, but his bravado slipped slightly. "You think you found purpose? This is just a phase, Jack. You'll never escape who you really are." Jack looked around at the friends he had just started to connect with, their smiles, their hope. It was contagious. "I don't want to escape my past. I want to use it. To make sure no one else has to feel lost or alone." Tension crackled in the air, heavy and alive. For the first time, Jack realized his worth wasn't defined by the wealth or prestige he had walked away from. His worth was tied to this community, to the connections being forged in this very diner. He could help shape lives alongside them, but just as he took a step forward, ready to embrace the moment, a sudden question hung unasked in the air. What if Alex was right? What if he couldn't change? Jack's insides nodded with uncertainty again. Then there was a stir in the back, a new voice rising above the rest, a voice that hadn't been heard yet. It was one of the younger patrons, trembling but steady. "But what if we fight together? What if we don't give up?" Hope surged, pushing back the shadows. Jack felt fortified, ready to embrace what was next. But would the growing connections withstand the scrutiny ahead? As Jack looked back at Alex, determination burning in his chest, a new question flickered in his mind. Was he prepared to face not only his past but also the storm it would stir up among those who still held their expectations over him? Jack's gaze remained locked on Alex, the vibrant energy of the diner swirling around him like a tempest. He could hear the growing whispers behind him, a soft chorus of encouragement, but the weight of Alex's presence pressed on him like a lead blanket. The diner, with its simple decor and familiar smells, suddenly felt like the stage of a high-stakes drama. "What if I don't change, Alex?" Jack replied, his voice steady, yet laced with vulnerability. "You might be right. This could all fall apart. But I have to try. We have to try." The silence that followed was deafening. Jack felt the eyes of the community on him, weighing his every word, eager for a resolution, yet uncertain of the path that lay ahead. Across the room, Sarah stepped forward, her voice cutting through the uncertainty like a knife. "You don't get to define Jack's journey for him, Alex. We're all here, ready to support him, ready to make a difference." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowded diner. Jack watched the faces of his newfound friends, each one lit with a fresh determination. In that moment, theirs was a collective heart, beating louder and stronger than any hesitation that simmered within him. Alex, however, remained unfazed. His smirk returned, but now it felt more desperate, less genuine. "You think this little band of misfits can take on the world? You're playing pretend, Jack. We all know what happens to dreams. Dreams can change lives. They can inspire others. And I won't let fear dictate my future." Jack stepped closer to Alex, the heat of his conviction sparking the air around them. "If I'm naive, then let me be naive. But I refuse to stand by while people suffer." At that, a voice piped up from the back of the diner. It was Jenny, a waitress who had become a friend to many in the community. "He's right. We're tired of playing second fiddle to those with privilege." Her voice wasn't loud, but the sincerity held everyone's attention. "Why should we let someone else tell us what we can accomplish? Not anymore." Jack felt a jolt of energy surge within him. Jenny wasn't just speaking for herself, she was echoing the hearts of many who had been ignored far too long. With each passing second, he sensed the tide turning. Alex, for the first time, looked uncertain, his smirk faltering. "This is just foolishness," he scoffed, but the conviction behind Jack's words seemed to challenge him. Jack inhaled deeply, ready to address the underlying fear that twisted in so many souls in the diner. "It'll be hard. I can promise you that. But if we come together as a real community, shoulder to shoulder, we can fight for what's right." The heartbeats in the diner synced with his, pulsating with newfound hope. It felt like a dam breaking, the collective anxiety releasing into a river of resolve. They weren't just a part of a conversation anymore, they were a movement, a force. As Jack's words hung in the air, Alex's eyes flickered, revealing an emotion that was more than contempt, a stray thread of unease. The energy shifted, and Jack seized the moment before it slipped away. I want to connect with every single person here, to be part of something greater. I need your voices alongside mine. Just as a wave of applause began to swell from the patrons, Jack heard something he didn't expect. A crash from the kitchen pots clattered, an unmistakable sign of chaos that interrupted the moment. Jack's heart raced again, now for a different reason. What was happening behind that kitchen door? Would the diner still hold together amidst the storm brewing in their hearts and the unexpected confusion from the back? The question lingered, heavy in the air. All eyes turned toward the kitchen. What would unfold next? The kitchen door swung open wide, and a cloud of flour billowed out like smoke from a rising fire. The cacophony that followed made every head in the diner turn, eyes wide with concern. A young chef named Ben stumbled out, flour-dusted and frantic, his apron smudged with streaks of sauce. "They've got a health inspector in there," he exclaimed, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. The panic in his eyes reflected the urgency of the moment. People murmured under their breaths, and Jack's heart sank. The last thing they needed was a crisis to derail the momentum they had built. Sarah rushed over to Ben, her expression a mix of empathy and determination. "What happened?" "A complaint came in about the kitchen. They're checking every corner to ensure we're up to code," he panted, still catching his breath. "If they find anything wrong, I don't know what it means for the diner. For us." Jack felt a wave of solidarity rise within him. With voices ignited by camaraderie, several patrons stood up, unwilling to let fear snuff out their spark. "We can't let some inspector come in here and shake us down. This diner has been our home," Jenny called out, a determined glimmer in her eyes. The energy pulsed with new life. Jack locked eyes with Sarah. "We need to rally everyone. This place doesn't just serve food, it feeds our souls. If they think they can tear us apart, they're wrong." With a firm nod, Sarah bounded into the fray, rounding up those willing to join the fight, including Alex, who stood awkwardly but curious. Jack shot him a glance, an unspoken question hanging between them. Would Alex ally with them in this moment of need or stay on the sidelines? In the meantime, Jack began to pace the floor, drawing strength from the surrounding voices. "Listen up. We all know how much this diner means to us. We can't let bureaucracy override community spirit. Let us show them what we're made of. Does anyone want to help me stand up for our right to do business?" The crowd erupted into a chorus of shouts. "Yes. We're with you, Jack." Feeling the adrenaline coursing through him, Jack summoned his courage. "Let us make sure they know this isn't just about a health code, it's about our family. About refusing to be bullied by someone who doesn't care about us." Alex shifted uncomfortably, rubbing the back of his neck as if the very idea was both intriguing and maddening. Despite his earlier doubts, he seemed to be re-evaluating his role in all of this. "Fine. I'll help," he said finally, his voice steady, but an edge of pride tinged his words. The clamor of voices grew louder, each utterance filled with hope and determination. They were tired of being overlooked, tired of silence. They embodied the essence of community fighting back, champions for their cause. As they banded together around the kitchen, Jack felt the weight of fear lift, replaced by a brimming sense of possibility. The door to the kitchen cracked open, revealing the inspector, clad in a crisp blue uniform that felt out of place among the shabby charm of the diner. Jack stood at the forefront, ready to face whatever came next. "Let us show them we're not backing down," he encouraged, heart racing as they closed ranks, standing shoulder to shoulder, and then, just as the inspector took a step inside, a loud shatter echoed through the establishment. A tray of dishes flipped over in the frenzy, sending the floating clatter of plates onto the floor, serving as an unexpected curtain raiser to the brewing confrontation. What was about to unfold? Would this inspection open the door to change, or would it send them crashing down? Jack braced himself, prepared to fight for what truly mattered. The inspector paused, startled by the noise, and several patrons collectively held their breath. The atmosphere shifted, an electric charge of tension hanging in the air as everyone expectantly watched the inspector recover from the sudden ruckus. Jack clenched his fists, feeling a mix of fear and defiance bubbling inside him. "Is everyone okay?" the inspector finally asked, his voice steady despite the chaos. He scanned the room, his eyes narrowing on the crowd that had gathered. There was something unsettling about his gaze, making Jack feel as if they were being sized up for a judgment rather than in the presence of a helper who enforced health codes. "Yeah, we're fine," Jack spoke up, his voice stronger than he felt. "But we don't appreciate the surprise inspection. This diner has been a safe haven for us, a pillar in this community. Just look at everyone here willing to stand up for it." His words hung in the air, and in that moment, the patrons rallied behind him, a wall of support swelling around Jack. Even Alex seemed more sure of himself, lacing his hands together, ready to confront whatever was thrown at them. The inspector raised an eyebrow but didn't move. "It's my job to ensure the safety of establishments like this one. Just because you feel attached doesn't change the rules." Jack's heart raced, but he pushed down the urge to back down. "And we'll show you we follow the rules because we care. Every meal we serve is made with love. It's not easy keeping a place like this alive. It's more than just serving food, it's about creating community." Jenny stepped forward, emboldened by Jack's words. "This place is more than bricks and mortar. We come here for the warmth, the relationships, the memories shared. You can't just walk in and judge without seeing that." The inspector sighed, scratching his head. "Unfortunately, I can't let sentimentality change the outcome of my inspection." They watched as the inspector motioned to Ben, who had returned, looking frantic but ready to defend his kitchen. "You'll need to show me around, and we'll see where things stand." "Sure. I'll take you." Ben's voice was strained but resolute. As they stepped into the kitchen, the other diners whispered among themselves, anxiety mingling with reluctant hope. Jack moved toward Sarah, who was still as determined as ever. "What if he targets something serious?" she whispered. "We can't lose this place. We've fought too hard." Jack glanced toward the kitchen, where Ben was explaining the layout while the inspector took notes. "If he finds something wrong, we can still make it right. We can rally together again. We won't quit fighting for our family." Just then, the sound of crashing plates echoed once more, this time a clatter of voices swirling through the crowd. Everyone was on edge, waiting for any sign of where the inspection might lead. The unease grew heavier as they saw Ben's shoulders droop, a sign the inspector wasn't pleased. "Let us not lose hope," Jack urged the group. "No one here wants to go down without a fight. We have each other." But even as Jack spoke, a pit formed in his stomach, knowing how fragile their reality was. What would the inspector uncover? Just then, a loud thud came from the kitchen, a box of supplies spilled on the floor, announcing its clumsy entrance. Laughter bubbled among the patrons, a moment of levity against the odds. But could it be enough to lift the gloom? Jack turned slowly, watching the inspector's face tighten, giving a sense of impending judgment. Would this be the moment that led to change or despair? As tension mounted, Jack felt the stakes rise higher than ever before, unaware of the twist that was about to unfold. Would they gather to support in time, or was disaster barreling toward them? Jack braced himself for whatever was coming, knowing every second counted. The kitchen buzzed with activity, but all eyes were on the inspector. Jack's heart hammered in his chest as he watched Ben walk through the cramped quarters, his face a mask of determination and worry. Every clatter of pots and pans, every sizzle from the grill felt amplified, fueling the growing anxiety of the crowd outside. "All right, let us see it then," the inspector called, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Ben nodded, leading the inspector deeper into the kitchen. Jack remained close to the doorway, trying to catch snippets of the conversation. He couldn't shake the feeling that this moment could tip them from safety into chaos. "Everything is up to code," Ben asserted, his voice firm but edged with fear. "We keep things clean and fresh. This diner means the world to this community." "Let us hope that's true," the inspector replied, peering into every corner with a scrutinizing gaze. Jack could see the inspector's pen scratching notes furiously, the ink flying across the page like a ticking clock counting down to an uncertain fate. Outside, the group's anxiety grew into whispers of doubt. "What if he finds something?" Sarah asked, biting her lip. "What if we have to shut down?" Jack shot her a reassuring look, but inside, he felt the seeds of panic take root. "We'll handle whatever comes. We're a team. We survive together." As each minute passed, the waiting crowd flipped between hope and despair. Jack picked up on small murmurs, stories shared, memories tied to the diner, and laughter echoing from the kitchen. Each one was a reminder of the heart that pulsed through this place. Suddenly, the door swung open, and Ben stepped out, his hair damp with sweat, his eyes wide. "He wants to see the storage area." The ripple of shock swept through the group. "What's the problem there?" Jenny whispered, her hand clutching her purse tightly. "Nothing," Ben insisted. "It's just messy. It didn't look this way before, I swear." Jack's stomach knotted. "Then let us make it right. We'll clean it up. We'll show him we care." With surges of adrenaline, the patrons moved swiftly, rallying around Ben as they rushed into the back. Hands flew, boxes were shifted, and items were tossed aside. Jack could hear laughter mingling with urgency, a small light cutting through the tension. "Over here!" yelled Sarah, pointing to a corner where stacks of unorganized supplies piled precariously. They all dove in, the group united, as each person took a section to make sense of the chaos. That teamwork made a wave of warmth wash over Jack. This wasn't just about the diner anymore, it was about them. It was about facing a challenge together, refusing to let their piece of happiness slip through their fingers. But before they could finish, the inspector stepped into the storage area, arms crossing over his chest. He peered in with a critical look, his brow furrowed, ready to dissect the improvements they had desperately crafted in haste. Jack held his breath. He saw the inspector's mouth twitch. Was that a hint of amusement? Or was it the cold steel of judgment? Whatever was brewing in the inspector's mind, Jack felt the weight of it pressing against him like a brick wall. "What's this?" the inspector thundered unexpectedly, gesturing to an overturned box with a spilled mix of canned goods. The crowd froze, hearts racing, as they awaited his verdict. Jack stepped forward, courage igniting inside him. "That's our mistake. We'll own it. But just give us a chance. This diner is worth the effort." In that breathless second, everything hung in the balance. Would the inspector see their heart? The inspector's eyes narrowed, lingering on Jack. "You feel so strongly about this place? Let us see what really lies beneath your passion." Jack's heart sank at the gravitas of those words. What did he mean? What was he about to uncover? As the inspector slowly opened his mouth to speak, Jack felt the tension spike again, aware this would change everything. The inspector cleared his throat, and the air grew heavy. "You're all so eager to protect this diner," he began, eyes darting around the room, "but are you truly prepared for what lies ahead?" Jack swallowed hard, feeling the heat of a spotlight on his back. Was this a test? Could their dreams hang on this man's next words? The crowd seemed to lean in, breath held, waiting for the slip of fate that would either save or convict them. "I can see the love you have for this place," the inspector continued, softening his tone slightly. "But love can't substitute for the rules that keep your patrons safe." Ben interjected, "We never compromise on safety. This diner is their home away from home. Please, we're trying our best here." The inspector nodded, but Jack sensed the man's skepticism. He studied his expression as the inspector took a few steps back, eyeing the hastily organized chaos. "All right then," the inspector said finally, breaking the tension that seemed to stretch endlessly. "I'll overlook the mess this time. But," he raised a finger to emphasize his warning, "you need to get your act together. I'll be back in a month for a follow-up inspection. If things aren't up to standard then well, you know the implications." Relief washed over Jack like a warm spring breeze. The crowd erupted into cheers, hugs, and backslaps all around him. They had been given a second chance, a lifeline thrown in turbulent waters. Jack grabbed Ben's shoulder, eyes shining. "See? We stood together." But as the cheer echoed, the inspector turned, a sharp glint in his eye. "You'd better make it count. Or the next time, it may be too late." With that, he walked out, the patrons left to celebrate a victory that felt fragile, like the delicate balancing act they had just performed. The euphoria of relief mingled with a newfound urgency in the air, a reminder that their struggles were far from over. Jack basked in the success for a moment, but soon the reality pressed in around him again. "Ben, we need to seriously reorganize that storage area. No more rushing. We can't afford any risks." "Agreed," Ben replied, his brows knitting together. "We need to come up with a plan, a real plan. We can't keep waiting for the next disaster to strike." Jack nodded, drawing in a breath of determination. He could feel the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. This diner was more than just a place for fries and burgers, it was a community hub. They had to protect it. As they started to gather what remained of the supplies, a voice from the back caught his attention. It was Sarah, her tone unexpectedly serious. "What if the inspector isn't the only one we have to worry about?" Jack turned, confusion etched on his face. "What do you mean?" "Think about it. If he's coming back in a month, there's bound to be someone else lurking around, waiting for them to fail. We need to be ready for anything." Her words ignited a fire in Jack's gut. He glanced around, making eye contact with the others. They needed more than love and teamwork, they needed plans. Ideas. Action. "What if we found a way to highlight our community as support?" Jack suggested, a spark of enthusiasm igniting in him. "Let us showcase what we mean to each other, to the people we serve. Visits with local suppliers, community cook-offs, a fundraiser." There were endless possibilities. But amidst the excitement, an unsettling thought crept back in. Would it really be enough? As they began brainstorming, a shadow passed over the diner's entrance, and fleeting figures entered, their energy strangely off-kilter. Jack's heart raced again, an inkling of unease settling in his chest. Who were they, and why did they seem so interested in their little diner? As the sense of foreboding deepened, Jack realized this was just the start of something bigger than any of them could predict. The buzz of anticipation filled the diner as they rallied around Jack's idea. Everyone was eager to brainstorm their next steps to ensure their beloved diner remained a beacon of hope and community. Craftsmen stopped by, lending their skills. Friends from nearby neighborhoods signed up to help with essential renovations. It felt like the air itself was charged with energy, a collective determination that twinkled in every eye. "Let us organize a community barbecue," Emily shouted, her excitement infectious. "We can invite the neighborhood, raise funds, and show people what we're all about." Cheers erupted around her, the enthusiasm rising like dough left to proof. Jack felt a hill of weight lift from his shoulders, replaced with the warmth of collaboration. Months of tension, uncertainty, and self-doubt melted away as he watched his community come together. They painted walls, fixed broken cabinets, and organized shelves, hosting potlucks where laughter and flavors filled the air. But somewhere deep inside, Jack still felt the shadow of Alex's earlier skepticism creeping in, whispers of doubt that suggested they might fail in the end. It was the nagging what if that loomed larger than he wanted to admit. "Hey, Jack," Ben called out one morning, his arms covered in paint as they touched up the diner's trim. "You nervous about the inspection next month?" More than nervous, Jack admitted, glancing around at the makeshift assembly line of community members. What if it isn't enough? What if they come back and it still doesn't match up? Ben stopped what he was doing, wiping his brow. You've got to trust in the work you've put in. This community is behind you. We're stronger together. Those words struck a chord in Jack. He looked out at the patrons gathering for their weekly meeting, each face radiating hope and commitment. You're right. This isn't just about one inspector. It's about us. We're building something bigger. And then, in that moment of realization, he knew they weren't just building a diner. They were creating a mission, a voice for change. As the days passed, the plans for the barbecue took shape. Flyers were posted around town, social media erupted with excited buzz, and volunteers poured in. Jack felt his heart swell, electrified by the energy pulsing throughout the diner. When the day of the barbecue arrived, it was a sight to behold. Families filled the parking lot, scents of grilled burgers wafted through the air, and kids laughed with ice cream smudged on their faces. Alex showed up unexpectedly, his demeanor shifting from skeptical to intrigued as he noted the camaraderie. Looks like you did all right for yourself after all, he said, a half-smile appearing on his face as he observed the crowd. Jack met his gaze, strikes of determination lighting his eyes. He had created something real, something that mattered. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the hopeful crowd, Jack stood at the forefront, holding a microphone. Thank you, everyone, for showing up and for believing. This diner is home for all of us, and together, we're stronger. Applause reverberated, echoing off the diner, wrapping around Jack like a hug. Suddenly, he noticed something at the edge of the crowd, a familiar figure making their way toward him. It was the inspector, clipboard in hand, eyebrow cocked amid a wash of jesting and joy. Jack felt his heart plummet. Here it was, his moment of truth, the judgment he feared yet anticipated. All eyes fell upon the inspector as he approached, and a hush fell over the crowd. Would he observe the joy, the connections, the warmth in the air, or would he only focus on policies and codes? Jack, the inspector began, flipping through his papers. Jack took a deep breath. He felt the weight of each individual gaze zoning in on him. I must say, I've seen your efforts. Yes? Jack replied, holding his breath. You've put your heart into this place, and I've observed how the community has rallied behind you. It's impressive. The crowd held its breath. Jack felt a glimmer of hope flowering in his chest. The inspector continued, I will approve your operations as long as you follow through with addressing the previous issues. Relief washed over Jack like an ocean tide. Cheers erupted throughout the diner, enveloping them as they collectively exhaled. They had turned the tide, and it reinforced the bonds they had forged along the way. Alex clapped, now genuinely smiling, and Jack noticed the admiration in his eyes. Looks like you've created a revolution here. Who knew? With joy surging through him, Jack joined the laughter and the jubilation. His heart was full as he looked at Sarah, Emily, Ben, and all the beautiful faces surrounding him. They had fought back, they had transformed, and they would continue to thrive together like a lighthouse for others to seek refuge. As the evening faded and laughter filled the diner once more, Jack realized that true transformation doesn't just happen in one moment. It was a continual journey that required their hearts, their voices, and their commitment to one another. The diner would not just survive, it would thrive, nourished by love, and so Jack knew, as each face shone with hope, that the story was just beginning. One moment of courage can inspire a legacy of strength, and that is the power of a community, a story worth every ounce of effort. Now, my dear friends, it's your turn. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next incredible story and witness transformations that inspire. This is the moment to show your support, so leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let those who need to hear these stories know they're not alone. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending, and don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this hope and change. Support the channel, you're part of this journey too.